My name is James, and barely a week after my divorce was finalized, I learned that my ex-wife Clara had remarried. She had always been vocal about finding her ideal man, bragging as though she'd struck gold. But when I finally saw the man she traded me for, I couldn't help but laugh. Before you assume this is just bitterness talking, let me take you back to the beginning so you can understand why this moment felt so absurdly funny. It all started years ago when I visited my aunt one weekend. She was always thrilled to have me around, and I made the effort to visit whenever I could. That day Clara happened to be there too. She was connected to my aunt through their church group. They weren't close friends, but Clara occasionally stopped by to help out. Honestly, I barely registered her presence. Sure, she was attractive, but she didn't leave any lasting impression. We exchanged polite small talk and that was it. If you had asked me to describe her a week later, I wouldn't have been able to recall much. Months later, I visited my aunt again and Clara was there bustling around helping with chores. This time we talked more and the conversation flowed effortlessly. Hours passed without me even realizing it. When Clara was about to leave, my aunt, ever the meddler, whispered to me, "Don't let her slip away." I brushed it off with a chuckle, thinking she was just being her usual playful self. But before Clara left, she suggested we exchange numbers. I agreed, and after she was gone, my aunt teased me further, joking that I was already smitten. I laughed it off, but that moment planted a seed I didn't yet recognize. We started texting and then we spent hours talking on the phone. Clara seemed genuinely interested in my random stories and I enjoyed her company. I made sure early on that she was single, and my aunt confirmed it without me even having to ask. That gave me the confidence to let things unfold naturally. After a few weeks of chatting, I mustered up the courage to ask her out. She said yes with a warm smile, and our first date kicked off a relationship that felt effortless. We dated for years, taking our time before even discussing marriage. I believed rushing into it would be a recipe for disaster, and Clara seemed to agree. Eventually, we decided to tie the knot, convinced that we had built a solid foundation. But life has a way of throwing curveballs. Shortly after the wedding, I landed a high-paying job that seemed perfect for our future. The only catch was that it required frequent travel, sometimes for weeks at a time. I saw it as a short-term sacrifice for long-term stability. Good money now, a comfortable life later. I thought Clara understood, but as the trips piled up, so did her frustration. What started as warm farewells turned into curt exchanges. She'd snap at me, "Another trip?" instead of asking when I'd be back. I tried to explain that I wasn't choosing work over her, that the money was for us, but she wouldn't hear it. To her, it felt like I was prioritizing my career over our marriage. When I returned home, exhausted from long flights, she would pick fights over trivial things. Then came the accusations, wild claims that I was cheating on my trips. She'd say it added up, my fatigue, my absence. I stayed calm, reassured her of my love, but her suspicions only grew. Our home started to feel like a battlefield, with me perpetually on trial. I began to linger out longer, dreading the tension that awaited me behind our door. I even searched for local jobs, but the pay was barely enough to survive. It felt like a lose-lose situation. Either I chose financial struggle or emotional distance. One day I came home from a trip and Clara greeted me with a faint smile. For a moment I thought maybe she was tired of fighting and that we could move forward. But soon I noticed she was rarely home. She would mention errands or visiting friends, but I didn't want to assume the worst. I'd been accused of cheating, and I refused to do the same to her. Still, doubt crept in. One afternoon she said she was at her friend's house. Hours later, that same friend showed up at our door asking for Clara. My stomach sank. I called Clara, and she claimed, without hesitation, that she was with her friend. I glanced at the friend sitting on our couch and asked, "Is she there with you?" Clara doubled down, saying, "Yes." That was when I realized she had lied. The truth hit me like a tidal wave. When Clara returned that evening, I confronted her calmly, explaining that her friend had been at our house. At first, she fumbled, sticking to her story, then deflected when I suggested she call her friend to clear things up. When the lies finally crumbled, she turned on me, blaming me for abandoning her emotionally, saying I'd pushed her to seek someone else. She even accused me of cheating to shift the blame. Finally, she admitted there was another man, someone who valued her, someone who was everything I wasn't. She didn't hold back, praising him relentlessly. The moment she confessed, I knew it was over. I didn't beg, I didn't argue. The next day, I contacted a lawyer and filed for divorce. It was gut-wrenching yet liberating. When someone shows you they no longer respect you, you don't cling to them, you walk away. Divorce, however, isn't clean or quick. It's a grueling process filled with court dates, paperwork, and negotiations. Every decision, who gets what, became a skirmish. Clara, meanwhile, seemed unfazed, moving in with her new man. Our few interactions were laced with jabs. "You were never enough," or, "I finally found someone who gets me." Those words stung, but I learned to let them go. I couldn't control her, but I could control my response. After nearly a year, the divorce was finalized. I kept what mattered most and walked away with my self-respect intact. A week later, I heard that Clara had remarried. I was stunned, not upset, just surprised at how quickly she'd moved on. I wished them well and moved on, expecting never to see her again. But fate had other plans. A month later, I ran into them at a store. Clara's face fell when she saw me, and then I saw her perfect husband. He was a scrawny, disheveled guy who looked like he'd never left his parents' basement. After all her bragging about trading up, this was her prize? I couldn't help but burst out laughing, not out of spite but from the sheer irony. She grabbed his arm and scurried off. I called out, "Have a good one," and kept walking. That moment was a revelation. I hadn't lost anything worth keeping. I dodged a bullet. The weight I had carried for years lifted, replaced by a calm certainty that I'd closed that chapter for good. Clara had made her choice and I had made mine. I got the better end of the deal. My freedom, my peace, and a future full of possibilities. Post-divorce, I chose to stay single for a while. I needed time to heal, to rediscover myself. Interestingly, one of Clara's friends started reaching out, being unusually kind. I kept my distance, wary of complications after everything I'd been through. Reflecting on it all, I learned some hard truths. First, you can't fix someone who's determined to misjudge you. No matter how patient you are, they'll twist your intentions if they've already cast you as the villain. Second, you don't lose someone who was never truly yours. Clara had emotionally left our marriage long before the papers were signed. I share this story not for pity but for anyone who might need to hear it. If you're stuck trying to salvage something broken or blaming yourself for someone else's choices, know this: peace is worth more than pretense. Freedom beats forcing a painful fit.